Hello everybody, welcome back to the workshop. So in this video we are going to answer another blacksmith question of the day, or should we say questions of the day. So we're going to answer 3 questions and we're going to get to it right now. First question came in from Karen Moore one day ago as of the recording of this video. Can a person be too old to begin blacksmithing? Thanks and God bless. So that's a great question, Karen. I would say yes and no. And where I say yes and no is, and I draw the line, is depending on your physical capabilities. As we get older, sometimes we just cannot do the things that we want to do anymore like we think we should be able to do. It's really all about knowing your own limits. So let's say you're 90 years old, but you feel fit and fiddle and you want to get into blacksmithing. Sure, why not? Ask your doctor. He's going to probably say no. Or she is probably going to say, no, are you crazy? But ultimately, you get one ride on this rock, and you really shouldn't be letting other people tell you how to live it. So if you're on the older end of the spectrum, more power to you, but do know your own limits. Do not get into do not get into the habit of thinking, okay, you got to swing a giant hammer and you've got to have all this stuff, because it's very hard to build muscle the older that you age. And say like when you're young too as well, your muscles are underdeveloped, as where when you're older your muscles have already been developed or overdeveloped at that point in time, and you're in a different type of life cycle. So you have to work to your own strengths, know your own weaknesses, and you can smith really at any age. Next question comes in from a Jason McPherson, I believe that's how you pronounce it. Another great video. Having a problem welding a 3/4 inch to a 2-inch square to make a hardy tool. Have a small MIG welder. What ideals do you have for this? So if you're trying to take and weld those really large chunks together, you have to do kind of some welding best practices. And there's probably a few people that could help you, and comment down below in this video to take and help you out as well. But you need to make sure that you have a really good deep groove ground all the way around. Say a 3/4 inch hardy shank is what I think you're doing with a 2-inch top. You want to make sure that you bevel it very well, and then you have to take multiple passes with a small welder. It's just what has to happen. Also, preheating the large 2-inch piece and the 3/4 inch piece. If you have a really small welder, preheating those 2 pieces before you start welding will help you get a lot better burn in. It'll allow it to get a lot more penetration of that weld. One of the other things that you can do is, so MIG welders, of course you can do it with MIG welders, but I have found that with making tooling, I personally get better welds if I use a stick welder, good old buzz box welder, and you can really crank them up there. So that might be something that you might want to look into in the future. The last thing I would say is, when you get these pieces heated up and everything, you want everything with MIG welding to be as clean as humanly possible. It kind of just depends on what you're doing, but you have to remember you're making a tool. So it's more critical that that tool doesn't break in operation and harm you or somebody else in the shop. If you're not really sure whether that's going to work or not, it might just be handy to go take it over to a weld shop or a fab shop and just ask them real quick and say, hey, I'm trying to weld these 2 pieces together. Is this something that you could do, and how much would it be? If it's absorbent, not a great ideal, but sometimes shops like that will be like, yeah, I'll just throw it on, weld it up real quick for you, because they've got the equipment to do so. Again, beggars can't be choosers when it comes to that either, so they might do a really rough job of welding and you're not any better than where you started. But I hope that will help you. Again, preheat your pieces first, get a really good bevel, and weld. Take multiple passes, multiple runs. Don't try to fill up the whole fillet weld all in one go, and that should help you out. Okay, next question comes from Jim Patterson, and thank you for all these great questions, by the way. Hashtag question of the day. He used the proper hashtag. In making a nail header, do you want your hole to be larger or smaller on the exiting side of the header? I've seen it both ways. It has been explained that the larger hole on the exiting side helps prevent getting your nail stuck. After watching multiple videos from talented smiths, I've seen it both ways. Thanks, Roy. Okay, So that is probably going to be open to debate. I've only ever made nail headers where the broader end is on the bottom side, but that's just because I read that in a book, and that was the proper way of doing it in the book, so to speak. But there's also an argument that could be made for doing it where it is, matching essentially to a degree the taper of the nail. The problem that you run into when you're trying to match the taper of the nail is you're not a perfect machine, so you're bound to take and draw out a nail that's either a little bit too narrow or too thick to take and go into that, and then that's going to end up causing sticking inside the hole. Now, you could theoretically just do a straight hole all the way through, and that would be fine as long as you had a big enough shoulder underneath where you're trying to upset the nail head itself, and that would be perfectly fine as well. The big difference is you don't want the shank of the nail, the portion that will be driven into the wood later, catching on something and somehow, bending over or bratting itself inside the hole, because then you have a whole nother different issue. You'll never get it back out the way it came. The reason why nails come out of nail headers is by cooling the nail head, the nail itself. It contracts away from the sidewalls, and that gives it just enough clearance fit that it can be wiggled right out of the nail header. So you'll see people heat up a nail, drive it in there, drive the head on it, and then you'll see them dunk the nail header in a bucket of water, right? They'll just quench that. What they're doing is they're trying to get that nail to shrink down away from the nail header, and then that's what a few taps on the anvil and out the thing pops. Sometimes it takes a little bit of experience. How do I want to say? It takes a little bit of practice, a little trial and error to figure out what that exact shape is. I personally would say punch from the underside mostly and just remove the slope from the top. That way you create a situation where you can drive that nail back out nice and easy. So thank you for the question. That's going to be it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this little segment of Blacksmith Question of the Day. If you have more questions, put them down in the comment section down below. As always, if you like to support content like this, share this video around with your friends if you had it be informative, even in the slightest. We greatly appreciate that. And if you'd like to support what we do here at Christ Center Ironworks financially, a great way of doing that is checking out our website over at blacksmithpdfs.com. Thanks, and we'll catch you on the next one. God bless.